Resistance grows as you get closer to change. The deeper the transformation, the thicker the fog. What I need is a structured, gradual identity migration, psychological exfiltration from my old self. Resistance is not a sign that I'm failing. It's a threshold I'm training myself to cross without violence. When old patterns arise, I don't suppress them. I accompany them with grounded presence, curiosity, or warmth. Momentum builds after movement. When you spend lots of time designing powerful first principles and getting excited about the prospect of redemption, that momentum adds a certain amount of pressure to things when you begin to take action. I'm realistic about where I'm at. Homeostasis is a powerful force and one I pay homage to as a worthy enemy. In order to tackle it, I use subterfuge, stealth and cunning. A full frontal assault against an armed fortress will end in ruin. Resistance is not a sign that I'm failing. It's a threshold I'm training myself to cross without violence. When old patterns arise, I don't suppress them. I accompany them with grounded presence, curiosity, or warmth. A new idea, a new insight is an empowering thing, a liberating thing, but it only becomes useful when it leads to behavior change. This is the place where real warriors are born, not in the formation of exotic battle plans, but in the blood, sweat, and tears shed on the battlefield itself. A new habit is like a chaste maiden. It is not a logical problem I'm dealing with, but a biological one. I do not fake positivity. I coexist with difficulty while gently introducing a new emotional tone. Over time, this repatterning becomes embodied truth. Pigeonholing people is counterproductive when it comes to forming connections, as it stops me truly being open to who someone is, denies their uniqueness, replacing them with a simulacrum that represents my fears and prejudices. I no longer prove my aliveness through exposure in social situations. I hold the truth with reverence. I speak to connect, not to discharge. I don't fear being unseen because I see myself. Every person is like a vast living mystery shielded by forces I cannot see. Beneath the surface of every human being is a story I do not know, a truth I haven't heard, and a beauty waiting to be revealed. When I choose wonder over judgment, I train my perception to see what's real instead of what's convenient or easy. I share when it's rooted in presence, not impulse. I don't prove I'm real by being raw. I prove it by being rooted. People don't need to get me. I need to be felt as someone who is easy to be around, curious, warm, and non-threatening. If I want to fit in, that's the social currency I offer. The more time I spend around people, the more I learn how to integrate myself, build social skills, and make meaningful connections. Every job provides an opportunity to touch someone, to lighten their load. I carry a spark with me wherever I go. Each new day is full of possibilities, each person a fascinating book full of hidden depths. Divulging personal details can be a form of social glue, but it can also be polarizing and leave you open to judgment. This doesn't mean I have to maintain complete privacy. I just have to protect myself by not sharing aspects of my experience that might provoke discomfort or caution. Everybody has challenges, nobody is perfect, but the smart ones know what's safe to share and what isn't. I don't need to be naked to be real. My truth deserves a safe home, not a quick escape. The more I act from awareness instead of habit, the more I sculpt who I truly want to become. I am not a slave to impulse. I am a forger of behaviour, a crafter of character. My tongue does not own me. Impulses don't define me. Discipline does. Every time I pause, I give myself more options. What feels natural is often just what's familiar. Familiarity is not truth. I am not my behaviour. My behaviour is a pattern. Patterns can be broken. Untrained power creates unintended weight. Insight is power. Power requires calibration. Insight comes naturally to me, but not every moment needs to be understood, fixed or deepened. I share wisdom when it serves connection, not just to solve problems or appear impressive. Sometimes the most powerful thing I can offer is empathy or space. Stating it's just who I am is a lazy shortcut the ego uses to avoid accountability. It stops me owning things and moving beyond them. Like a warrior preparing for battle, I train myself to pause before I speak. I rehearse situations to test me so I'm not caught off guard. I learn what kinds of questions or topics pull me off track, and I get used to feeling the urge without acting on it. Other people are not psychic. They can't detect my thoughts, my past, or my self-judgment unless I act in ways that reveal them. Nothing is visible unless I broadcast it. I am not being seen, I am projecting. I am in control of my narrative. I refrain from sharing information or framing it in a certain way that makes me feel vulnerable. I keep the conversation rooted in the present moment and don't allow myself to become the sole focus. The strongest people aren't the most open. They're the most aware of when openness is safe. Self-disclosure without context isn't brave, it's blind. I choose to speak from a place of strength and discernment, not a reflex to relieve inattention. It's easy to assume new skills can't be developed if your mind fixates on past mistakes. I see past this mental illusion and spend time developing the skills I need to protect myself. The more I act in alignment with my values, the more self-esteem I build. This allows me to spend time in society without feeling out of place or like I'm hiding some dark secret. I base my connections around presence and avoid fear-based impulses that trick me into believing I need to divulge painful experiences from my past in order to be seen. My past doesn't define who I am. It's just a collection of memories. Closeness does not mean vulnerability. I always retain control over the narrative I present, despite the strength of the connection. With enough contemplation and practice, I can discover what it means to form connections with people who've led very different lives to me. Making blanket assertions about people is neither productive, wise, or kind. When I obsess over protecting myself and worry about being judged, I close myself off to the present moment, where true connections are formed. Instead of looking for differences, I look for commonalities and celebrate the differences that make people unique. Self-defeating narratives can easily perpetuate themselves when they're mistaken for truth. No two people have had the same life. Everyone has experienced trauma, addiction, fear. I don't lose power when I step back. Instead, I gain space, clarity, and peace. Not everything that's true needs to be shared. Vulnerability builds connection, but only when calibrated to context and trust. Disclosure without discernment can become a form of self-harm. People respond to the signals I emit, my body language, voice, and the way I carry myself. These are under my control. I train them like any other skill, and I ground them in self-respect and through right action. People don't respond to who I am, they respond to what I project through my behaviour. If I carry tension, shame, or hesitation, that's what they feel. If I carry groundedness, presence, and calm, that's what they feel. Deep listening breaks the self-conscious loop. It shifts me from control to connection. As a practice, I can put myself in other people's shoes and imagine what it's like to be them. Trying to manage how I'm seen keeps me trapped in my own head. The more I monitor myself, the less I connect. Presence dies when I'm watching myself perform. I'm not the main character in the room. I don't need to dominate the space to belong. I don't need to be impressive to be accepted. I can shift attention away from myself without losing value. My humour is not who I am. It is a tool I wield. When I use it intentionally, I connect. When I use it reactively, I risk misreading the room or putting pressure on other people to be humorous. My humour is not a sin to erase, but a blade to hone. Certain roles in life require a particular performance. Bringing the same character to every role shows a lack of ingenuity and flexibility. If a product is unfit for public consumption, it gets recalled and adjusted until it's palatable. I don't need to be fully known to belong. People rarely care who I am. They care about how I make them feel. If I can be warm, relaxed, and unthreatening, I can fit in anywhere. Power doesn't chase attention, it holds space. The less I perform, the more I command. I move away from emotional accessibility towards psychological magnetism. I don't need to energize the room to be accepted. Calm presence and social restraint show I'm at ease and let others set the pace of connection. I'm done entertaining. I'm done managing the awkwardness of others. If I'm a bit cool, so be it. Still water draws more attention than nervous splashing. When I overperform socially to manage anxiety, I trade my presence for control. Anxious overcompensation isn't connection. It's a fear ritual disguised as charm. Real power comes the moment I stop trying to manage the room. I take the time to learn the deep art of withholding, or social edging, to keep back just enough attention, warmth, or revelation to create curiosity, tension, and pull. The longer I delay the release, emotional, intellectual, personal, the more powerful the connection feels when it finally lands. People aren't props in my movie, they are the point. My obsession with outcomes and creative success has blinded me to the fact that I'll never be fulfilled in isolation. The skill I most need is not composing, it's connecting. Every moment I reject someone or something as not being a part of my master plan is a moment I forfeit life itself. A job is not a destination, it is a dojo. The work I do is less important than who I become while doing it. At the mammalian nervous system level, we are wired to recognize calm containment as high status. In nature, alpha creatures don't fidget. Most people don't want deep connection at work, they want social ease. If I lower the pressure and stay grounded, I give them what they actually need. The slower I release, the more power I hold. My personal life is not small talk, it's earned content, high-grade DLC. If I want people to open up, I give them room to stay closed first. I'm not here to crack them open like a Kinder surprise. I'm here to be a room they don't want to leave. Leaders speak low, slow, and rarely. They don't improve, they approve. I'm done trying to be liked. I'm here to lead through stillness. I'm not being seen when I'm projecting. I'll just respond to what people express, not what I imagine. I thought I was rejecting jobs because they were beneath me, but I was protecting my ego from the sting of feeling ordinary. Being ordinary is where power begins. I can't be a warrior if I refuse to train in the mud. No job is beneath me if it feeds the next chapter of my life, if it helps me build confidence, gain rhythm, or interact with the world again. that serves me. My worth isn't tied to what job I take, it's tied to who I become while doing it. Taking a basic job doesn't mean I'm small, it means I'm finally big enough to manage it. If I need a job to reflect my value, I haven't yet internalized my value. The idea that some jobs are beneath me assumes dignity comes from the task, but dignity is found in how I carry myself within the task. Mediocrity is a state of mind. I'm realistic about my capabilities. If I don't have the skills to fulfill a job role on day one, then I avoid stress, disappointment and embarrassment by leaving those jobs alone. Efficiency and sustainability are paramount. My fear of being mediocre leads me to apply for jobs I'm unqualified for. I now value humility above all else. To be humble is to be aligned with reality. Accepting my limitations helps me build from a more stable infrastructure. Wherever I go, that's exactly where I'm supposed to be. Value judgments like better than are just remnants of a culturally inherited ego structure that was always destined to fail me. No job is beneath me, because no job defines me. I'm not a title. I am not the projection of a system that grades humans by output. I reject the lie that my worth must be proven. I choose to treat all beings, myself included, as sacred. Value is not earned. It is determined by each of us. My MA is ammo, not a passport. It enhances me, it doesn't entitle me. I still have a long way to go before I can build a career in this industry. Aligning with this truth leads me away from despair and pessimism by helping me to see my current state is just a small part in a larger process. Being fixated on lofty ambitions can cause immense suffering when you lack the resources or the know-how to have them realised. The wisest strategy here is to shift my goals to make them more manageable. The next chapter of my life is all about pragmatism, humility, and more than anything else, people. People can't see something wrong in me. They react to energy, posture, tone, and tension. The same voice that tells me I'm not normal is the same voice that tells me I'm superior. I move beyond shame by taking responsibility for actions that violate my moral compass and directly or indirectly promote harm. Becoming lost in shame is a form of avoidance and selfishness. By purifying my mind and owning my impact, I restore my reputation with myself. Feeling accepted by society is not something I chase. It flows naturally from the way I've come to accept myself. I'm not selling out, I'm cashing in on my flexibility. Taking a basic job doesn't erase my past, it builds my future platform from the ground up. If I use my MA to exclude myself from the reality of what I need to do, it stops being a tool and becomes a chain. A master's degree is only useful if I can master myself. If I need validation from job titles to feel okay, then I've learned nothing. But if I can walk into any job and carry myself with clarity, humour and presence, that's the real sign of mastery. Forget the fantasy of a clean path. I take the job, I make the money, I build the stamina, and then I strike like a cobra. No one's coming to rescue me. No one's rolling out a red carpet because I have an MA. I train, I launch. Blue collar, white collar, doesn't matter. I'm fire forged. I make my way through the wilderness. Some elements of a job criteria, such as attention to detail, can be vague. If it's placed in the context of an activity I have no experience in, then I mention this in my covering letter and instead reference activities that may or may not demonstrate it. Transparency helps an employer to make the right decision. It limits my exposure to disappointment and embarrassment. The idea that I might be wasting my time doing a job that's unrelated to my MA is valid, but the fact remains I have hardly any expertise or knowledge regarding what it takes to secure a suitable job in the creative industry. While I'm figuring that out, it just makes sense to have a job and be making some money regardless. The old myth that I can't do both has only been used to justify procrastination. That's not me anymore. A master of arts without self-mastery is just a smart slave to pride. I only sell myself short when I use my qualification as an excuse to avoid opportunities I see as beneath me. Aligning with reality is empowering, not limiting. If I feel like my options are limited, it's because they are. I apply for roles I'm confident in, even if they sound less stimulating. Socially, I have some strengths and some weaknesses. It makes me the same as everyone else. True wisdom stems from humility. Applying for jobs beyond my skill level is inefficient and potentially damaging to my self-esteem, not to mention a waste of other people's time. If I lack one or two skills in a job description, but I'm really drawn to it, there's no harm in either contacting the company to inquire or being candid in my covering letter. Transparency helps an employer make the right decision and limits my exposure to disappointment or embarrassment. I put an end to unhealthy and inaccurate comparisons that place me above other people in any way at all. Entitlement only leads to bitterness and suffering. If there's one skill or state that could benefit my life more than any other right now, then it has to be humility. I'm only responsible for what I actually commit to, not the unspoken expectations others place on me. If I show up, work hard, act with professionalism, then I'm not using anyone. I am earning my pay, not exploiting kindness or gaming the system. If I leave after 6 months, I've left behind work well done, relationships honoured, and no mess to clean up. I know if I'm qualified for a job if I read the job description and don't feel any sense of nervousness or self-doubt. I do not lie. I do not hide what the other person has a right to know. I share what is relevant to the agreement in a way that builds trust. I do not flatter, manipulate, oversell, or pretend. I do not spill what is mine to carry, unless it serves the relationship. The illusion I'm special is the very thing that's kept me stuck and alone. Letting go of this self-perpetuated and externally reinforced lie can only benefit my life moving forward. I no longer sign up for self-sabotage disguised as ambition. I value everyone's uniqueness as well as mine. If I have to lie to get the role, I'll probably suffer in the role. I'm no longer manipulating my way through life. I'm building a life based on bedrock. Many goals have prerequisite requirements. Being realistic about what they are is the first step towards meeting them. I can move. How I'm fixating on doing this now distracts me from building the stability I need to do so in a safe and sustainable way. I take the time to consider what my strengths are, along with my skill base, using a variety of sources to seek out jobs that coincide with this. This proactive approach helps to offset the repetitive and reactive approach of simply trawling through job boards, as useful as they may be. The benefits of a job go way beyond the job description. Taking a seemingly unrelated action is always more productive than taking no action at all. If I move, then opportunities may arise. If I stay put, I stay stuck. There is no bigger rut than a life of inaction. Stagnation is the real enemy, not imperfection. I break free from the spell of either-or thinking. The weight of past mistakes can often become such a powerful narrative that it cripples taking effective action. I notice when I'm making broad statements that can only be based on fear or some kind of inner resistance. I am thorough when it comes to rooting out beliefs that only serve to limit me and are counterproductive to my goals. My life is precious and I no longer choose to limit it based on factors outside of my control. When the battlefield changes, so must my tactics. What I lose in time, I gain in confidence, resources, opportunities, friendships, self-esteem, and the biggest thing of all, my life back. Time is a price I gladly pay. Having commitments encourages me to practice time management and learn how to work more efficiently. Safety creates space for greatness. Falling back on habitual ways of doing things is an inefficient and limiting approach when no time has been spent gathering data to ascertain their efficiency. To single-mindedly obsess over a particular outcome or goal is to limit my life experience. The only place I can get stuck in a rut is in my mind. Practicing my craft is only one element that determines my success. Specialization, confidence, and building a passion for real people are key factors I now choose to focus on. The refusal to start small is the refusal to start at all. Genius that doesn't move is just mental constipation. If I keep waiting for a job that matches my potential, I'll never develop the force of will that makes potential real. Really, the money is only one part of it. To get anywhere, I need to build momentum, bring myself out of comfort zones and reintegrate with the world I shunned. Progress in any direction gives me the psychological and emotional leverage to make future pivots. When you have a tendency towards pessimism, it's easy to interpret things through a lens of negativity. I have not wasted the last 8 months. The only backward step is the one I never take. To place self-imposed limitations on myself in the face of external ones is to pierce myself with my own sword. I have a very limited understanding of the job market and the criteria companies use when they're deciding where to advertise jobs. Indeed, may be the best medium, or it may not be. Instead of making assumptions, I take the time to research and expand my knowledge base so I can take informed actions. Notice when I'm making broad statements that can be based on fear. Believing I've wasted my time is just more self-flagellation. It harks back to the same energy that kept me in that place. To restore my power is to free myself from those chains. To focus on perceived weakness is to invite it into my life. I have a certain set of skills which can be utilised in different ways. Using a MacBook is just one of them. I no longer choose to limit myself by fixating on a single option. Reintegrating with society and life helps me build the confidence, knowledge and resources needed to tap into a wider range of opportunities. When you single-mindedly focus on some far-off goal, you forget to enjoy the journey. You don't stop to look around. People become a help or a hindrance based on your needs. You miss so much. I have no equipment, no transport, and no decent clothes. I can save up for a decent PC and do a good job with that. I can build the confidence I need to start interviewing for the jobs I really want. I can move out of this city and start again somewhere new, closer to opportunities. It's not a foregone conclusion that I have to stay in a low-paid job. This is just a fear-based, limited thinking. I have a fair amount of skills that could come in useful. As long as I'm willing to make the effort and reach out to people, who knows? I won't let limiting beliefs define my life experience. I don't need to force myself to enjoy anything. I just need to understand how powerful I become when I choose to be positive and optimistic instead of cynical, when I choose to see opportunities instead of limitations. The value of working goes way beyond financial gain. Forming connections, building confidence, having structure, momentum, feeling like a member of society. Of all the forms of payment, money might be the most vacuous. Sometimes there is no option that will meet all of my needs. With this reality in mind, I shift my expectations and push forward with an option that meets at least some of them. Although some paths may take a detour, they're still preferable to staying put. Sometimes we choose beliefs to fit our preferences without even realising it. The belief appears as reality when you're under its spell. If I don't try, I'll never know. Assumptions are always based on limited information. If I develop the right mindset, I have a much better chance of succeeding. What need is there to fight during a time of peace? When the clamour of armour and the clash of shields rings across the lands, the warrior of virtue rises up to heed the call, for he is forged in the crucible of conflict. There is no shame in succumbing to fear, the most worthy of adversaries. It can conjure up any illusion and make it real. Its power is awe-inspiring. Liberation comes when I realise this power is my own. Fear gives me the perfect aim, showing me where to place my blows. I must strike with brutal persistence and precision. I have been a coward, but I'm not a quitter. I will not let this last bastion fall. Here I make my stand. There are those that have attempted to ruin me. They may even strike again. These walls must be reinforced with iron and blood. When my enemy grows quiet and hides his moves, I am more vigilant than ever. When I stay on the battlefield, I hone my skills. I build resilience, self-discipline, and courage. Having my favourite toy confiscated does not stop me from playing. If they seize my weapon, then I fight with my fists. If I die fighting. Sometimes we are struck down with such ferocity that we become incapacitated and temporarily weakened. This is why I treat my enemy with such reverence. Its true power lies in breaking my resolve, my spirit. Its most powerful spell is the one that causes me to tear myself apart from within and forget who I am. The one true thing that separates a warrior from a victim is the ability to fight whilst under fire. When the sun shines, I fight. When the winds howl and the rain lashes me, I fight. When my enemy is close, I fight. When my enemy lurks in the shadows, making nefarious plans, I build my defences and prepare for war. Everyone has the capacity to crumble. A well-aimed strike can fell the greatest warrior, but while he still has the strength to rise again, a single defeat will not end the war. When your life has consisted of seeking comfort and gratification for so long, anything that threatens that seems oppressive. It's purely an issue of framing. I calibrate myself to external demands by realising them as the pathway to victory. Avoiding anything challenging in life only leads to stagnation and suffering. The easy road is lavishly decorated, but leads to ruin. A true warrior craves the fight as a test of his mettle. He understands that he grows weak in times of peace. An adversary that instills fear in him is a worthy one. Some of the most insidious enemies appear as mundane, like an aged monk that walks with a limp, but throws off his garb and strikes with an unholy fury when provoked. The warrior's greatest enemy is always himself. To be defeated outside of battle is the ultimate tragedy. I hold my enemies in the highest regard, for without them I grow weak. A general must be battle-hardened in order to create an effective strategy. I don't see justice as punishment, I see it as completion. If a price must be paid, I pay it as a man reclaiming his name, not as a criminal collapsing under it. Verdict is not ruin, it is reckoning. I carry it, not as chains, but as closure. Justice for the past does not define me. It completes the story of who I used to be. What I do with it defines who I become. Let the verdict not be a cage, but a crucible. I carry that weight into the fire and come out forged instead of branded. If that's what it takes to reclaim my name, then light the fire. If the past demands a price, I will pay it. Then I will walk forward clean. If I'm held accountable by the law for mistakes I made in the past, then so be it. I don't use this as an excuse to spiral. Instead, the man I am now takes responsibility for the man I once was. I receive any verdict not as punishment, but as justice fulfilled. It marks the end of who I was and the beginning of who I choose to become.